an overview of Salesforce 1. My name is Douglas Merrill, and I've been with Kyazma for a little over a year. We do consulting for businesses that need help implementing Salesforce.com. And we're going to talk about the Salesforce 1 platform for mobile. I've got a little bit of experience with it, so I'm going to talk about what I know, how to make some customizations and things like that. You should all be able to see my screen now, and I'm assuming you can all hear me. But I'll be talking for about 25 minutes, 30 minutes or so, and then you can post some questions. I'm not a master or a guru by any means, but I'll do the best I can to answer any questions you have. But I'll show you how to get at least off the ground and get people using your Salesforce 1 mobile app in your organization, and how to try to optimize it a little bit to make it easier for people to use. So, all right, so if none of you are familiar with Salesforce 1, it's kind of the new mobile approach that Salesforce is taking to make their platform easier to use on mobile devices and when you're away from a desktop or a laptop of sorts. So it's been used and optimized to try to simplify the interface and allow people to access their data quickly in a more streamlined fashion. This is what's replacing the old Chatter app because it's quite a bit more functional. It could do quite a bit more. So if you have the old app, the old Chatter app installed, I ran into a problem because I had the old one. Sometimes that causes a problem with an installation of the new Salesforce 1 app. So sometimes it's best to uninstall the old one and then reinstall so you get the new icon, the new look, and things like that. So one thing that I've noticed when I started working with this is you've got to have the right device. I have a Galaxy, Samsung Galaxy. Turns out I have too old of a operating system. I need to have at least the Android 4.1 or better. I have like the 2.7 or something, so I got to get a new one, or I just at least update it. For iPhones, you have to have the iPhone 4 or later. Any Apple device has to have the iOS 7 or later, and you can't do it on an iPad 1. It has to be an iPad 2 or later, and of course I have an iPad 1. So I'm out of luck. So those of us that are out of luck with the right device, there's a way to access the mobile app. Actually, here's an emulator within your browser. Now, not all browsers I've discovered are friendly to the Salesforce 1 emulator. I had some issues with Internet Explorer considerably, and Firefox seemed to be okay, and Chrome seems to work the best. So here's what we're going to do. You should be able to see my screen right now. What we're going to do is if we come here to this URL, here's how you get to the emulator. This is very important. You're going to want to keep track of this. You go to your base URL here, then you're going to type in 1/1.app. And now your browser is going to load as if it were the Salesforce 1 mobile app. And here you can see my computer is now acting as if it were a mobile app. And right now, my mobile app is set to go to my tasks originally. We'll talk about that in a second. If you're logging in for the first time as your admin to the mobile app, it'll always default to your Chatter feed as the very first thing that you see. Sometimes that's what you want. Sometimes that's not what you want. So we're going to go through and talk about how to change it so it goes to the right landing page that you want it to go to within the realms of what Salesforce 1 allows. And then we'll talk about how to adjust and play around with some of the navigation items that you see over here on the left. If I click on this, this icon over here, which is kind of a list of navigation items, click on that, it opens up my navigation items over here on the left. And then if you're on a mobile browser, you can just swipe these back and forth. I'm sorry, if you're on a mobile device, you can swipe it. In this case, I'm just using my mouse, so I can just drag this up and down. But as you can see right here, if I click on tasks, it takes me back to that same landing page. Click on people, it takes me to the people from Chatter landing page. If I click on accounts, it takes me to my standard accounts landing page with all accounts, new last week, new this week. And these are my list views, plus all the other accounts that I have just in the system. Oops, I swiped to the second. I opened one up. Okay, you also have down below here a couple links. You have your name. If you click on it, it takes you to your Chatter feeds. You'll notice right here that I can swipe this back and forth. You can also click on this little dot right here. It takes you over to your Chatter profile. So those are the two options you have on that. We'll go back to our page, navigation page. If for whatever reason you're having an issue with the mobile app and you need to go to the full site, or if there's content you can't access on the mobile app but you want to get to the full site for whatever reason, you click on this and your mobile device will take you to the browser, which is still an option if for whatever reason you need to go to the browser version of Salesforce directly from your app. But let's go back to the app. So let's go back to our emulator. We're going to type in 1/1.app. Opens up our app again. And now what we're going to do is we're actually going to make a few changes to how this is working. So let's go back to Accounts Home. Right here, we're inside the browser, and I'm going to click on Setup. And if you look down here, you've got an option that says Mobile Administration. If I open that up, I have something for Salesforce 1 under Notifications of Mobile Administration. If I click on Salesforce 1 right here, there's only a few things I can do. First of all is enable it, and then you can set it to other connected apps if you need to from this particular section. But most of the navigation for Salesforce 1 is going to be done under Mobile Navigation right here. So if I click on Mobile Navigation, this link, it's going to open up a list of items right here. And these are things that I'll be able to see in my navigation pane in Salesforce. So I can come over here, add and remove items. For example, feed, groups, dashboards, move them up into where I want them to be, and click Save. Now if I go back to my emulator, let's reload that emulator. Should go to my landing page. If I click on this list of items, navigation items over here, I'll see that I've now got far more. I've got my people, groups, feed, dashboards, and that should be the same as the navigation options I set up. People, group, feed, dashboards. Smart search items, this one right here, is actually your list of recent searching items that are on this side. Now here's a hang up, and pay attention to this because you'll get in big trouble. When you first log in, so if you're on a sandbox and you do this, you may not see very many options over here at all, and you'll be like, well, how do I get to my accounts and my cases? Salesforce 1, these links over here have to do with the things that you've searched for within the system. I can search at any time by clicking on Search Salesforce and search. Obviously, it shows me some recently viewed things, but I can type in account, and it'll find anything. And I've got a testing account in my dev environment. Right here, this is just an account that's in the system. If I click on that, it takes me to that testing account because it had that word in there. But if we have, the more things you search for, the more items you're going to see showing up in this recent section right here. Now, you do have the option of Show More. So if I click on Show More, I'll see the rest of the objects and items that I've been searching through that I can navigate here with. However, if for whatever reason you're not seeing something on there, here's something you can do to make sure you see the things that you need to search for right here. We go back to our Salesforce instance. I click on, say, Home or something. If you go to your search menu and just search for things, right here in your search results, you have the ability to pin certain things as your search results that you'd like. So, for example, if I pin contacts, and I pin accounts, and I pin, say, maybe assets and campaigns or something, and then I come back over here to my Salesforce emulator. As you can see right here, here's the things I've searched for recently. We don't see assets and campaigns here. But if I refresh this emulator, I should now see the things that I've specifically pinned right here. And that shows up. However, I didn't see assets there, and it's more than likely because I've never ever seen any records, nor do I have any records in that assets table, so that would be why. But that's how you can kind of manipulate this set of searchable items right there. Oops. Okay, so let's talk about making some adjustments to the actual page layouts of your records. Let's come back here and unpin my items that I have. Unpin those. Let's refresh my emulator again. Obviously, I haven't logged out, so it goes back to campaigns because that's what I clicked on last. Okay, so if we come back to our emulator, what we can do for mobile users, oftentimes you don't want to have 40 to 80 fields on any particular record, because by so doing, you're going to end up in trouble with people having to scroll up and down the screen significantly just to find the right data that they're looking for. So when designing for mobile, you want to be as brief as possible with respect to the amount of data that's required to enter and the data that you're trying to return back in views. So if I come over here to my my apps, I'm sorry, if I come over here to my my app setup in my customized section, and I click on this and I go to contacts, let's actually adjust the contact page layout. Before we do that, let's look over here and let's actually look at the contact page layout and kind of get an idea of how big it is, what it looks like. Let's click on this guy right here. As of right now, I've got, as of right now, I've got probably a good, 20 or so fields in here. I may want to simplify that and maybe bring it down to just a couple. So let's go back and let's do that. Let's come over here and let's make a new page layout. We'll say new, and we're just going to start from scratch. We're going to call this our mobile layout. And then I click on save. Now you can see, since I didn't start with the default layout, I have nothing here. So I'm just going to say I want to get, say the, let's see here, we want to make sure we have the mobile phone number, name and account, anything that's required automatically shows up. I want to have the mobile phone number, I want to have their email, and to make it simple, maybe I want to have maybe just their mailing address or something. And then I'll click Save. Now I'm going to set this page layout for system admins. I'm going to set it to just the mobile one. And now if I go back to my emulator, let's refresh that emulator here and make sure that, that we got it. If we go back to Stu Haley, which was our contact, as you can see, I've got very few actual fields now in this page layout. Now, it does depend on just your profile alone, so you can't really set a layout to say, this is the layout to use on whenever someone's on a mobile device using Salesforce 1. So that's not necessarily true. It does come down to your profile. So keep that in mind as well when you're doing it, that profile layout determines also their mobile layout. Sometimes that means scaling back on the amount of data that you want to actually capture and see. Now, just so you know, navigation-wise, when you're looking at a record here, we can see that we've got these little dots up ahead that I can click on. And it kind of quickly jumps back and forth. What those are, and I can swipe them in a normal mobile app. What those are is right over here, this is your chatter feed. So if I were to swipe to the left here, that would be the chatter feed of this particular record. This is the detail view. And then right here, if I swipe over this way, if I can, my mouse is grabbing onto that pretty good. Swipe over. This is actually going to show you any related records that are on that. So if we come up here and we look at this little plus button down here, these are publisher actions. Now, if you're not familiar with publisher actions, I suggest you kind of become familiar with them. I think the next webinar I do will probably have to do with creating publisher actions and how to apply them to Salesforce 1. But if you click on that, you can see any publisher actions that exist for this particular record type, meaning contacts. So you obviously have different publisher actions for accounts and whatnot, depending on what you set up. But publisher actions can be great because you can very quickly increase the usability of your mobile app, Salesforce 1, and I suggest looking into them. Quick record creation. Creating related records and stuff like this is usually the best option for publishers that I've come up with. I'm sure there's a lot of other Apex coding actions that you can apply to them as well, but keep that in mind when you want to use those. Now you'll notice that in a mobile app right here, you've got a call or email function, and depending on how you have it set up, if I click on call right here, it will try to actually just make that call directly from there if there's a number that I can tie that to. But if I want to edit this record, I click on the edit button. Opens up an interface where I can make changes to that record, different lookups, and I can put that address in and whatnot. But we're actually going to cancel that. So that's how you do that. Now there's another different kind of layout. Let's go look at tasks real quick. As we can see right now, most of your related lists and just your related records have something called a compact layout. As you can see right here, I just have the name of a task called test. I believe that's the subject. Edna Frank is who the contact is, and that ID, I can't remember what that ID is. But if we want to change the way these compact layouts look, so if I'm looking at related records or something on an account, I'm not sure if I have any accounts on this or contacts on this account, but we can take a look. No, there's no contact. I think we have some on Beaumont. Yeah, Beaumont Health System. So compact layouts are kind of this view right here. So if I click on my contacts, it just shows you a quick snapshot. You know, what are the quick data items that I want to look at? Those come from compact layouts. So let's come back over here. We'll go back to tasks. Let's actually change our task compact layout like this. If I come over here to page layout assignment back on my browser, we'll go back over to customize. We're going to click on activities, and you'll notice you've got a new item here that are compact layouts. So for example, I have task compact layouts. If we click on that, we have a system default for every record type. There's a compact layout that's already developed for you that Salesforce provides. But let's create a new one. And we're going to call this our mobile layout. And we want to say who it's assigned to. Let's put the subject in there here. Yeah, subject, maybe even the status, and related to what particular record. And then we're going to click Save on that. And we'll go back to our compact layouts for task, and let's adjust the assignment. So if we click on Compact Layout Assignment, for some records, all you have is the option to change it from the default to something else, or in some cases, you can change it by profile. So just be careful when you do that. I did get an error once when I was playing around with profile. I think you have to make sure you have the default be applied to one of your custom ones in order for it to work. So play around with that. Maybe test it a little bit before you deploy that out to your users. But if I click on Edit Assignment right here, and I go over to my mobile layout now for task, I go back to my emulator, refresh this. When I look at tasks again, I now see I've got my name, who it's assigned to. The test would be the subject, status is not started, and that ID apparently applies to, let's look at my layout and I can remember what that was to. Oh, the related to record. Oh, and it must be related to a record that has an auto ID of 00, whatever that value is. Yeah, 1027. So, but if it was a person or a contact, you'd see that contact name right there. Anyway, so that's how compact layouts work. Play around with them, simplify, make it as easy as possible. So when you deploy this out to have your users use it, maybe start with a beta group of a couple people who are friendly to Salesforce and innovation. Have them play around with it, make sure it's user-friendly, play around with those compact layouts and how that works. Now, obviously, if we were to click on this task, and I can see right over here what it's related to, and yeah, that's actually a case number. So we can see any related items to it. Edna is a contact related to the case. And then over here I can edit this, close that out, and say I've got now this completed task. And we'll save that and be done with it. Okay, so things to consider when it's time to deploy this out is what do you want your users to see when they start using Salesforce 1? What data do you want to simplify so that they don't get overwhelmed? If it's not easy to navigate and find information, you'll have disappointed users, and the adoption will certainly not be near as great as you might want. And I would suggest starting to research and look into publisher actions. And now that I think about it, I think doing a webinar on publisher actions would be the next one that I'm going to do. And we'll go through some very specifics because they're very convenient when you're dealing with a mobile platform. Let's see here. Another thing to consider is the devices that everyone's going to be using and accessing those on. Because if they have an iPad 1, they're out of luck. If they have a Samsung Galaxy 3, or I guess a Galaxy 2 that's on an older version of Android like I do, they'll be out of luck. And using the emulator is not going to do them any good on their browsers. So keep that in consideration as to what their devices are and how to implement them in the best way. Let's see here. That's actually what I wanted to cover today. That didn't take near as long as I was expecting. If you have any questions, post them now. Let's see if I can answer them right now. So if you're on your GoToWebinar, you've got an option right there that says questions. Post something if you've got any questions for me. If not, I suggest you get this started, kind of play around with it. Use the emulator, do some development. Once again, that emulator URL, and don't forget this. Looks like this. 1/1.app, and this takes you to your emulator. And from here you can create new tasks and do whatever else you need to do. So play around with it. What you see in the emulator is exactly what people will see when they go in and they start playing around with Salesforce 1. And if you don't have a device that supports it, you should probably get one like I need to. Does anybody have any other questions for me? Because so far I don't see any questions. Okay, there's also some resources to look up online. If you just go and you do a simple Google on the Salesforce 1 app admin guide, that will take you to the standard app admin guide. I think we can just find it right here. Salesforce 1 app admin guide. It should take us right to, to that guide right there. Well, let's do the PDF version. Hang on. PDF one right here, and this should get you really off the ground, and you should be pretty set just by using this particular admin guide right here. And then it'll get you started. You'll be able to do probably 50–60% of everything you need to do. Now keep in mind, if you want to start having Visualforce pages available on your Salesforce 1, they do have to be mobile type Visualforce pages, and I'm not going to go into that, but keep that in mind. You cannot take your just standard Visualforce pages and put them on there. They have to be optimized for mobile, and Salesforce has some documentation on that as well, so keep that in mind. That is important if you need to do that. All right, well that pretty much covers my webinar for today. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact us at kyazmallc.com. We'll see if we can help you out. Feel free to roll this out to a few of your users. Play around with it a little bit on your own using the emulator. See if you can wow a few people, because I think Salesforce, this is the mobile platform that I think Salesforce was hoping to create years ago, and they just never seemed to quite get it right. But I think they've really hit it on the nose at this point, and this is only going to get bigger and more important with respect to this platform. So begin now, invest some time now so that you're prepared when all the features become available, and when this tool really becomes something that most companies are going to be using. Just get that baseline understanding and become familiar with it. So, all right, well, I appreciate everybody coming. I still don't see any questions, so I appreciate everybody coming on, and I will see you on my next webinar. Thanks. Appreciate it.